Okay, welcome. I believe this is Monday. Pretty sure it's Monday. So happy Monday to you. So, first of all, consider for a moment what it is that you want. And most likely, you'll notice that the question or the invitation right away provokes you to look in a particular way. Right? You look in a particular way. So, oh yeah, what do I want? So you notice where you look, how you look. There's a way that you do it. And what's interesting is to notice where you don't look and how you don't look. So if you have, we say, there's infinite field of infinite possibility. And instead of looking to that, chances are, I mean, it depends. Maybe you are, maybe this is not you, but chances are you don't look to that. Chances are you look to your thinking, your conditioning. Objects, ideas. Oh yeah, what do I want? And then so how do you know? You have to consult what's already known. Well, let's see, what are all the things that I know? Maybe I want one of those things. And then if you've done that often enough, you might get to a point where you just can hardly be bothered to even rouse the effort necessary to do that, because you know where it's going to lead. It's a dead end every time, ultimately. I mean, so maybe for a while you think, oh, that's going to do it. That's it. That's the thing. That's it. That's it. That's it. And then, no, that's not it either. So that's why I'm saying it's interesting to notice where you don't look and how you don't look. So notice that actually what you want can't be delivered to you by a thing, right? I mean, it should be obvious once you actually look at it. It's not obvious until you see it, but once you see it, it's obvious. Oh yeah, nothing can deliver that to me, because nothing. If it's outside of me, it can't get into me. So it actually has to originate here. Has to already be here. So you've heard that before, I'm sure. But let's see if we can shed some new light on it, because here's the thing is, and you heard me talk about this maybe recently, I talked about that marshmallow experiment where the researchers had some school children who were participating in this test, and they said, here, I want you to sit down. I'm going to put a marshmallow in front of you. Don't eat the marshmallow for 15 minutes and you'll get 2. If you eat the marshmallow, that's it. You only get the 1. So not going to be, it's not like we'll hit you if you eat the marshmallow or anything like that. It's just, you eat it, you get it. It's no trick. You get the marshmallow, have it if you want, but if you don't eat it for 15 minutes, you'll get 2. And then they followed up with them after for several decades, and they found that the kids who didn't eat the marshmallow right away, who got the 2 marshmallows, by all their measures of success, happiness and so forth, they achieved much greater degrees of success than those who ate the marshmallow right away. So you get to understand this in many ways, but here's why I'm mentioning it in the context of today. What if what you think you want is actually the inverse of what you really want? And what if what you really want is only available by not choosing what you think you want? In other words, wait and see. I'm going to propose to you that that's true. And that seems crazy, maybe in a world in which the message is, this will do it for you. No, this will do it for you. No, how about this? This will do it for you. No, this will do it for you. Get this. This will do it for you. This will do it for you. It's just like this thing, that thing, the next thing. It's, consumer culture, consumerism. Just keep consuming, but actually stop consuming and find out. Just find out, because at first, because the habit is to keep looking in the same way, that's a habit. And so that habit continues to assert itself. So you keep thinking, oh, that's where I've got to look for happiness. That's where I've got to look for what I want. That's how I've got to do it. I've got to keep doing that. And if you don't do it, then at first it seems like hard and maybe a little bit challenging. It's like, how am I going to get what I want if I'm not doing the only thing that I know to get what I want? Like, I really want the marshmallow. It's right there. I could just eat it. But what if I don't? How is that going to help me? The marshmallow's there. I want the marshmallow. If I don't eat the marshmallow, how's that going to help me? I just want the marshmallow. Seems like it's right there. All I got to do is just reach out and grab it, put it in my mouth. I'm going to have what I want. So it's difficult to understand from that perspective. How am I going to have fulfillment if I'm not doing the only thing that I know how to do in order to try to achieve fulfillment? So just wait and see. And then here's the funny thing. You'll find that waiting and seeing is what you want. The more you wait and see, the more you have what you already want, the richer it becomes, the more you're motivated to wait and see. Because there's something about, it's like, okay, I've been programmed that achieving this thing is going to give me what I want. Actually, wanting is what I want. The desire itself is what I want. But what I have so little capacity to hold the desire, so that I just discharge it every time I get a little bit of desire, and I'm like, I don't know what to do with this. Marshmallow, pop it in my mouth. And then the letdown. Is that all life is? Just popping marshmallows? That's all I'm gonna get. And then the next desire builds up, and I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I got it. Relief for a moment, but then is that all? Just consume, endless consuming. So this is why the delayed gratification, it's it's not even the, let's forget the gratification part, like instant gratification or delayed gratification. Those are your two options. But what's the same in both of those? Gratification, why don't we just remove that? So now we've got instant or delayed. And I'm saying delayed is what you want. Why? Because you want the desire. And the more you delay the gratification, the more the desire grows. In other words, the more that energy expands. How does this relate to somatics? Because the sensation that you experience, you'll notice that, so we will flip it around. We're looking at this in terms of what do I want, but we can flip that. What do I not want? And that sensation often is what I don't want, right? So I'm present, sitting, lying down, walking, whatever, eating, talking, something. And I notice the sensation consciously or unconsciously. And then that there's an interpretation of the sensation that's programmed in. Of course, the sensation doesn't have that meaning, but it's layered on top. That's the meaning that I've been conditioned to associate with that sensation. And if it's a bad meaning, negative meaning, undesirable meaning, fearful meaning, painful meaning, whatever, then what do? I got to do something to discharge it. Well, look at this. It's not any different than the other way around. It's actually exactly the same phenomenon as the marshmallow. There's the marshmallow. The marshmallow is now, it's just the difference between a carrot and a stick. Okay, but what's actually happening is there's a buildup of energy, but the capacity for holding the energy is very small. So whether I'm thinking that this is a positive thing or I'm thinking it's a negative, I think it's a marshmallow, i.e. carrot, or I think it's pain, difficulty, whatever, i.e. the stick. Either way, that's just a label that I've put on it. There's really just the sensation. The sensation is really just the energy. But the further away I am focusing from it, so if I just stay with it as pure energy, or even subtler than that, it's just being. So you can see there's like levels, layers. Okay, being, energy, what? Story. Reaction. Which is why if I'm just living at reaction, it's miserable. If I'm living at story, it's pretty miserable, but a little less than just at reaction. If I'm living at, if I bring it back to just energy, well, now, it's all right. And in fact, then I can allow it to even expand, and I start to discover that not only is it not either good or bad, it's actually just the nature of life itself. So choose a posture. And preferably choose a posture. I mean, if you can sit, it would be really wonderful, especially if you can at all sit where you're not leaning against something. If you can sit upright without a back support, that would be really wonderful for today's exploration. But as usual, don't push yourself. So know what your present limitations are. We will find it easiest and best and most sustainable to make small incremental shifts rather than looking for some massive blowout, which will only be very unpleasant. So find whatever is appropriate for you. But if at all reasonably possible, if you can sit without a back support, the reason being, I'd like us to, we're going to focus a little bit on the back side of the body. And close the eyes. So if you need to lean back, have back support, that's fine. If you need to lie down, that's okay. So don't push yourself, but do see what's possible. And become aware of the support that's here. So it's always a good starting point. If we're leaping ahead of that, then the temptation is there sometimes. Oh, I just want to get on with it. But if we don't consciously receive the support that's here, then we make things harder for ourselves. So become aware of that support. So you're resting on some surface that has you, hopefully, should be stable. And become aware of the contact of your body with that surface. Whatever part of your body is in contact. So if you're sitting, then you might notice the buttocks, the thighs. And notice here the low-hanging fruit that you can surrender, relax, soften. So we're not aiming for perfection. It's not about all or nothing. In fact, it's better if it's just a little bit. Just notice, what can you surrender a little bit? Is there some little tiny amount of gripping or squeezing or clenching that you can release, soften, surrender, so that you can just be received by the support, so that you're not fighting unnecessarily against the support? You're on a stable surface, so that surface has you. You don't need to do anything. You don't need to be pushing back. You don't need to be lifting up or away. You don't need to be clenching. You can just surrender the parts of yourself that are in contact with that surface. And then see if you can remain aware of that, whatever you've just surrendered, whatever you've released. I want you to remain aware of that as you also are aware of the breath. So you're aware of the breath, the in breath and the out breath, and let the inhalation be gentle and satisfying without being any kind of strain. So only as much as is totally comfortable, and then a relaxed exhalation, and let the exhalation be as long as is comfortable without strain. So you're not pushing or forcing. And see that you can continue to release that, whatever you've released, whatever you've surrendered. So you're on this surface, you're noticing the contact of your body with the surface, you're noticing what unnecessary effort in that area you can release, and then you're remaining aware of that as you breathe. And you may notice that as you're breathing at certain points in the breath cycle, that habit of re-tensing may come back. The impulse to do so may assert itself. And just continue to relax and release and surrender and soften as best you can. And again, we're not aiming for perfection. So it's not about shaming yourself or blaming yourself because you don't do it perfectly. It's about awareness. It's about the discovery. So here, you can also discover the truth of what it is that I was talking about earlier, that you're not really interested as much in the end result as you are in the process. Even though that seems a little strange, I know, because especially when the discomfort is strong enough that all we think we want is relief. But notice that actually there's some real joy in the process itself. In fact, the more you surrender yourself to the process, the more you completely invest yourself in the process, you become absorbed in it, the more happiness you experience. It's very fulfilling, actually. So this is a learning process, and the learning process itself is very fulfilling. It is very joyful in its own way. So it's okay if you're not getting it perfect, because that just indicates that you're learning. That's a good thing. And then as you continue to breathe in this way, you might notice that perhaps it's easier, you have more confidence in your ability to continue to surrender that unnecessary effort throughout the entire breath cycle. And then you might start to notice other indicators of unnecessary effort that you're making. So just start to expand gently your focus so that you start to notice where else are you making unnecessary effort. You might notice squeezing, pulling, pushing, trembling, and go for the path of least resistance. You might be surprised that your first impulse on how to do it successfully actually is just an indulgence of the old habit that is maintaining what you don't want. So just go with the path of least resistance. Just don't try, just let it go. Even if you think it's wrong, even if you think, oh, that's too easy, that's cheating, that's not it, that's not working, just go for it. Just let it go and see what happens. And then repeat the same thing. So you're not aiming for perfection. It's not about 100%. It's about whatever you can easily surrender. And then maintain that surrender throughout the entire breath cycle. And of course, you'll notice most likely that at certain points in the breath cycle, that impulse to reassert that clenching or strain or whatever it is comes back, and just slow it down, let go, be gentle. Don't force anything. So even let the breath be as relaxed as possible. Don't think that you have to take as big of a breath or any particular shape of the breath as you're in the habit of. Just let it all be very open, like you don't know. Just imagine that no one's looking, no one's judging you. Don't even judge yourself. Let yourself be totally without any judgment for just for this experience now, so that you're free to make mistakes, you're free to be foolish, you're free to do it wrong. Nobody's really looking. So now let's continue to have awareness of the breath, and we'll move our awareness to the breath in various areas, starting with the lower back. So I want you to start to be aware of the lower back as you're breathing. Notice, does the lower back move at all as you breathe, or does it stay fixed? Might be surprised at how numb or rigid your lower back is, how stuck it is. So just start to allow for the breath to move there without force, but just by being aware and having that intention that that area of your body too is allowed to move. That area of your body also is allowed to be soft, and that it's okay for you to make mistakes. It's okay for you not to know. It's okay for you to appear foolish. It's okay to get it wrong. It's okay to have bad posture. It's okay to look bad. All the things that you might notice that you subtly guard against. And any number of other things. So don't rely upon me to list them all out. You just notice your own habits, your own limitations, your own beliefs as they surface, just by allowing yourself to breathe into the lower back. So it's not forced, it's not excessively exaggerated. It's just a subtle, gentle allowing of the breath to move into the lower back. And just in the same way that as you inhale and the front of the abdomen gently expands, so too can the lower back. The lower back can also gently expand. And start to notice that and feel that, and notice what interferes with that. And notice that what interferes with that is only strain. It's only something that you're doing, and that it's uncomfortable. So a good clue, if you're ever in doubt, if it hurts, it's because you're trying too hard. You're doing something that's unnecessary, because your bones are the internal support, and they can hold you. So you can let them hold you. You can let the bones do their job. In fact, the more you let them do their job, the healthier they are. This is actually a fact. The more weight, the more compression there is on your bones, the stronger they are, the healthier they are, they operate on this principle. They really like that. They are the healthiest when they have that work to do. So if you allow them, they will be healthier and happier, and you will be healthier and happier. So it's a win-win. But you can just notice how you have these constellations. So as you just are breathing into the lower back, you'll notice there's sensation. That sensation is combined with an image, which is combined with a thought. And it's usually something like an image of some kind of damage or potential damage, and then a thought that says, this hurts, I have to brace myself, or I have to try harder, or I've got to sit upright, or I've got to lift myself up or pull myself up, or some variation on those things. You know, I'm hunched over, I've got bad posture, I'm bad, I'm weak, I'm not doing it right, I'm failing. Some variation on that. It's all about, this is not safe, I'm not good, I'm not doing it correctly, I have to try harder. And just notice how much effort is required and how uncomfortable it is to keep doing that. And you might start to notice that as you're allowing yourself to breathe into the lower back, that especially if you're sitting upright and you're not using a backrest, you might start to notice that it actually is changing the way in which you are sitting. You might start to notice that your pelvis starts to actually change its position. That, in fact, it's very likely that if you were sitting upright without a backrest, that previously your pelvis was tipping forward and now it's more upright. You might notice that all of the strain, or at least some of the strain in your lower abdomen, has softened. And you might notice that your breathing is changing. The way you feel the breathing in your body is changing. So it might seem unusual. If it seems unusual, that's a good sign. So this is another important principle, that we work unconsciously to maintain the status quo. And when we move outside of that, we experience something new, and our nervous system typically registers that as something bad. We start to perceive it as, I'm uncomfortable, I don't think I can do this. And then we unconsciously, typically, move ourselves back into our old pattern. So if you're feeling something new, and if it seems strange or slightly uncomfortable, you might even register it as, this is strenuous. And then you might think, well, I'm not supposed to be straining, so now how do I fix that? But just be willing to be with it. And instead of assuming that it's something bad that you need to fix by reasserting one of your old habits or patterns, instead just be with the experience and notice, where is the actual strain or discomfort now? Is it where I think it is? And is it really a result of what I think it is? Or could I just, instead of trying to fix it, could I just surrender more? So notice where the strain is actually, and begin to soften and release there. So you might notice, for example, that you're holding something unnecessarily in the lower abdomen or in the chest. or in the upper back. And so now let's continue breathing with awareness. And now we're going to begin to breathe with awareness on the space between the shoulder blades. So ask yourself now, does the space between the shoulder blades move as I breathe? And the space between the shoulder blades may not move a great deal, but it certainly ought to move some if you're not restricting it. So just have awareness there. Don't try to fix it. Don't try to figure it out. Don't try to get it right. Just be aware and notice as you're breathing, can you just soften and release there between the shoulder blades? And so we'll do the same thing here, which is that as you're breathing, you'll notice at some point that yes, you can soften. And we're not aiming for perfection. It's just whatever you can soften. So maybe 1%, 2%, 3%, 5%. And necessarily, this is going to mean, by the way, that in some way your breathing pattern will change, because there's something about your habitual breathing pattern that is unnecessarily restrictive, strenuous, rigid. So that needs to release in order for this to release, because it's kind of the same thing. That this unnecessary tension between the shoulder blades is the same thing as the unnecessary strain in the breath. So as it softens, the breath will also change a little bit. And don't be afraid of that. It's okay. It's okay if it seems strange. It's okay if you're not sure how to do it. That's just a good indication that you're doing it correctly, because you're encountering something new and unknown. So just continue to soften and be aware and notice through the entire breathing cycle, can you continue to allow that same release? So you may notice that you can release 1% of that unnecessary tension or strain between the shoulder blades. And maybe you notice, for example, that at the top of the inhalation, it's easiest to learn how to let that go, and then see, can you continue to let that go throughout the entire exhalation? It's really helpful, because if you can continue to release that through the entire inhalation and exhalation, then you know that something really new has not only changed, but it's being integrated. And remember to let the breath be relaxed. It's not strenuous. You're not forcing it. You don't need to count anything. You don't need to worry about any of it other than just being aware and letting it be satisfying, non-forced. So you're finding the right balance where just the body's intelligence can take over. You're no longer interfering. Your attention goes only into being aware. So you let the exhalation be complete. It's probably longer than you think, without strain, without force. And then a relaxed inhalation, only as big as is totally natural, without force. And you might even start to notice, particularly as the breath becomes more and more relaxed and natural and satisfying, that at the top of the inhalation, maybe it's not something you force, but maybe it just starts to be that there's a pause, and that pause is nice because you start to notice how much more you can let go. Space between the ribs opens up, and that just accentuates what you become aware of, so you can surrender, release, and then naturally the exhalation occurs. And the same thing, only it sort of in inverse happens at the bottom of the exhalation. Only if it's totally unforced and natural, you might just notice that there's a little pause and you can let go a little bit more deeply. And now let's do the same thing with our attention on the back of the neck. So just moving attention to the back of the neck as you continue to breathe in this way. And you just notice, what in the back of the neck can you surrender? So you will probably notice there's some unnecessary effort there. For most of us, there's a habit of tilting the head back and up. So releasing at the top of the neck, letting the head tip slightly forward is usually helpful. But whatever you notice there in the back of the neck that you can just release and surrender, and then continue to release and surrender that through the entire breath cycle. You're just going to take a few breaths as you continue to release that. And you might notice that it continues to grow, expand, soften. And now we're going to do this similar exercise, but we're going to shift attention to the right shoulder. And the reason we're going to focus on the right shoulder is that there actually is an asymmetry in the body, such that the tendency is for most people to have more tension in the right shoulder as a result of that asymmetry. It has to do with breathing. So as you're breathing, I want you to be aware of the right shoulder, and we'll start with you can have your attention at the top of the right shoulder. So notice what at the top of the right shoulder, maybe as it ties into the neck on the right side, can you soften and release? And then continue to allow that to remain softened throughout the entire breath cycle. So you might be surprised to find that the habit of lifting the shoulder on the inhalation is a strong one. It's very common, at least. So don't be surprised, I should say, if you notice that. And then just notice that you can be aware of that and you can consciously soften that. So you're not pulling it down. We'll actually get to that in a moment. You'll notice that that's already happening, but rather you just want to relax and release and soften voluntarily, so that as you're breathing, you notice there's that impulse to recontract and you just inhibit that, just soften, so that without counteracting the tendency to lift the shoulder just relaxes. And you might find that this feels very different, this style of breathing. When the shoulder is relaxed, you start to notice that some of the cues that you've used habitually, albeit unconsciously, as feedback to let you know that you're breathing, are reduced. And so you have to really be conscious and present to your experience to allow yourself to continue to breathe in this way and trust that this is okay, even though it feels different. So again, when things change, the nervous system tends to register that as this is bad. And that's why remaining present to the experience is very important. So you just continue to allow for that rest and relaxation of the shoulder through the entire breathing cycle, even though it might feel very different. And then next, bring your attention to the right rib cage, the right side of the rib cage under the arm, and particularly kind of toward the back side. So sort of right rib cage, slightly toward the back, under the arm. And notice here what you can surrender and release. So you might be surprised, although let me rephrase that. Don't be surprised to notice if there's a tendency of holding a lot of tension there, because again, due to the asymmetry, the tendency is for that part of the body to hold a lot of tension. It's usually they're countering the chronic tension on the upper portion of the shoulder. So we've inhibited above the shoulder to some degree, and now we want to inhibit below. So you're releasing, softening, and then breathing and allowing that release throughout the entire breath cycle. And it might provoke a lot of constellations. So you might notice that the sensation triggers thoughts and images, like you might think this is hard, I'm frustrated, I can't, I'm weak, I'll never get it. All kinds of any kind of unpleasantness is possible. So just be aware of that and just continue to breathe and release. So now become aware of the whole torso as you're breathing. Notice how different this is from when you started. So you should notice that you have more awareness of the backside, more awareness of the right side, and that by having that awareness of the backside and the right side, that your entire torso is more at ease and more, if you're sitting, it's more vertical, more buoyant, more aligned, and you're more aware of the inner structure of the bones and your contact with the surface that you're on. Your head is likely more aligned over the spine, and it might feel different. I mean, it should feel different. It might still feel so new that it seems wrong somehow, but just keep trusting in it. Notice the habits of trying to fix it, trying to get back to something comfortable. Just be aware of those habits and ask yourself, what if I just don't? Could I just be here, just relax? See, there's an increase in energy. It's a buildup of energy. It's your own vital energy. It's your own life force. It's life itself flowing through you, and there's more of it, which is a very good thing. You might feel that if you really allow yourself to relax into that, you might start to feel it pulsating through you. You might feel the flow of it. You might feel the vibration of it. You might feel the tingling of it. You might feel the power of it. So this is a shift. It's a shift away from the habit of constantly discharging the energy to allowing yourself to hold that energy and to allow that energy to flow. And by delaying, hopefully indefinitely, the habit of discharging the energy, you start to notice that your perception of it changes. Instead of it being something that you perceive as bad, you start to perceive it as something that is nourishing you, transforming you, changing you in positive ways, lifting you into something new and unexpected and greater than your old limitations. All just by being aware, being patient, and allowing for this energy to fill you and make you more buoyant, just delaying the habitual discharge. And so the amazing thing is that this really can continue indefinitely. All you have to do is just continue to allow it. And that just requires continuing to be aware and delaying the habitual strategies for discharging. So in a moment, I'll invite you to open your eyes. And before you do, I'd like you to become aware of yourself in this new way. So be aware of how this expanded, uplifted, energetic, vibrant, unbounded self that you are aware of is more true than anything else that you've ever believed about yourself. So it's just directly experiential. It's not a belief about yourself. It's something you actually experience. It's something you can actually directly perceive about yourself. So notice that. You don't have to make it up. You can just relax into it and notice that it's here. There is a flow. There is a subtle energy. It is expansive. It is buoyant, and it is unbounded, and it's intimate. It's your own sense of yourself in a direct way. So you can perceive that, receive that, feel that, know that, taste it. And then in just a moment, I'd like you to begin to open your eyes slowly. And as you do, remain aware of this direct sense of yourself. So go ahead and slowly start to open the eyes. And just notice that this sense of yourself actually is the answer to the question, what do you want? So it's already here. It's just that it was being discharged before. So there was a sense of deficiency. But now you have this awareness of where it is, what it is, and not only that, but also how to allow it to continue to blossom and expand and increase. So that's pretty powerful. Just be aware then of what you do that discharges it. It's inevitable that as you're going through your day, those habits of discharging will arise and be indulged to greater and lesser degrees, but just be aware and then recognize that as you become aware, you're becoming aware of a new choice. Before you didn't have that choice because you weren't aware. It just happened. It was on autopilot. But now you can see through awareness as you discover, oh yeah, that's how I do that. I do that thing unconsciously, habitually, and that's a strategy for discharging the energy because I interpreted the energy as being uncomfortable or problematic. Whereas in fact, it's not just, it is life. It is my life force. It is universal energy, whatever you want to call it. And then by being aware, you can start to make the choice consciously. Do I want to do that? Is it worthwhile? And, there's so many examples, like maybe you notice you're feeling, you're feeling expansive, energetic, calm, peaceful. And then you decide to look at Facebook and 5 minutes later you're feeling bad. You can take a look at what just happened and you can notice, oh yeah, you looked at Facebook, you started shutting down. That was a choice. Then you can just start to realize, do I want to make that choice anymore? Was it worth it? or you're feeling good, and then you start thinking about something, then you feel bad, and you just notice, oh yeah, by indulging that, I started to shut down, discharge the energy, get small, and back into my old identity again. Is it worth it? You just start to realize that you have that choice. A lot of those, but as I've said, we need to do it slowly. So don't expect, you have the knowledge now, you have the experience, you have the knowledge. The application is another thing, because if you try to apply it 100%, you can't hold that energy right now. You don't have you haven't, you'll blow a fuse. You don't want to do that. This has got to be a little bit at a time. I mean that very, very sincerely. Don't think, oh, I'm just going to go whole hog, because you will regret that. You just can't. It's not, don't try. Bit by bit, you get the awareness a little bit at a time. You apply it a little bit at a time. Bit by bit, you start to notice a little bit more. I can hold the energy a little bit more. It just goes step by step, a little bit, a little bit, a little bit. Don't be impatient, or you'll blow a fuse, and you don't want to do that. Promise you. So we're not going to do a Q&A today. Thank you for joining me. If you have any questions or challenges, though, please do let me know. I'm here for that. And I will hopefully see you tomorrow for the reading of the Ramayana. It's very, very excellent. And if not, I'll see you next time. Okay? So blessings to you all. Thank you very much. Bye for now.